Okay,
Ready to go.
thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Hideout Town Council and continued public hearing of September 14th, 2023. This meeting is an electronic meeting without an anchor location. All public meetings are available on the Zoom and YouTube Live as well. We are working with waiting on hardware to get the ability to have hybrid meetings where we can have a limited number of people in the town hall for the council meeting. We're hoping to have that up and running by the October meeting, but certainly no later than the November meeting. We'll get that going and let everybody know about that. But again, just because of the size of the town hall, we'll be limited. And depending on what's going on with COVID, we may also have to make it mask required, but we'll let you know. I'm going to take roll, call the meeting to order and take roll. So first of all, let's see who's here. Bob Nailberg.
Bonjour, here.
Thank you. Ralph Severini.
I'm here as well.
Thank you. Carol Hazelton.
I'm here.
Thank you, Carol. Sherry Jacobs.
Here.
Thank you. And Chris Byer.
I am here.
Thank you. We're all here, full council. Cameron will be representing us, supporting us tonight legally as Polly's away. And Thomas is here as well as Jan, Alicia, and a lot of the other staff. So we're all here. I going to adjust the agenda slightly and change the items 3 and 4 after roll call here, which is approval of council minutes and follow-up items to the end of the rest of the agenda items, but prior to the committee updates. So we're going to push those down towards the end. That'll let us jump into the meat of the meeting early on, and we have speakers that are coming in as well, so we don't want to have them sitting around while we review minutes. So we'll do that. So we're going to jump right to item 5 of the meeting minutes. I'm sorry, of the agenda, which is the update on Golden Eagle subdivision, which really is that there is no update. Building permits are being issued as landowners look to move ahead. There's no stopping that, and there are no completions in the immediate future. So there's no questions about COs at this time. So everything is, moving ahead in Golden Eagle. Item 6 is public input. Floor is open for any attendee to speak on items not listed on the agenda. We do know of a couple of folks who've raised issues, so I don't know if they're on the agenda tonight or not, but as far as being here, because I can't see that as I'm only connected on my phone. So we'll open it for public input. The way that works is you raise your hand. If the 2 items listed on the agenda, if those folks aren't here, then we can cover their items regardless by reviewing the letters. So Chris, I'll look to you to acknowledge people and let them in.
All right, I see two hands. I see CCPC. Let's start with CCPC. Can you identify your full name?
Yes. Hello, my name is Haley Hernandez. I work at the Christian Center of Park City. I am the Basic Needs Assistance Data Coordinator. My job is funded through the State Office of Homelessness. My focus is to address and collect data on homelessness across Summit and Wasatch County. I've been in my position about a year and a half. And now I'm just coming to you guys because I really would love a point of contact in this area to make sure that nobody's falling through the cracks, and that people get critical services in the timely manner. I'm currently working with a couple of different partners and service providers, city council members, to follow up on HB 499, which is a code blue across the state. When the temperature drops below 15 degrees, anyone is able to open a warming station to protect people from the elements outside. I would love to update you guys as that progresses. As well, on January 24th, I am coordinating point in time count. Point in time count is a housing and urban development requirement for all service providers and counties and states across the nation. Volunteers go out one night and collect a count of how many people are experiencing homelessness, either sheltered or unsheltered. So sheltered would mean people staying in homeless shelters, domestic violence, transitional housing, places that are not permanent housing. So I'm looking for some volunteers for that, as well as just a point of contact out here. And I'm more than happy to leave my email and contact information in the chat. And then you guys are welcome to follow up with me later. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Jan, are you willing to be the initial point of contact here so we can learn more about the program and better understand
Yes.
what's needed?
And I am aware of the House bill and the code blue, and also some limitations like 7,000 feet and such. And I'm happy to be the contact and would love to help.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Jan. I'll put my email in the chat, and then if you can just send me an email, we'll set up a time to meet.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. We'll get some follow-up, and based on your guys' discussion, we'll figure out when we need to bring you back and learn some more. Okay, let's move on to the next hand, Chris.
Next is labeled Don Blumenthal. I'm assuming it's about this letter, so I moved down
Yep.
to it.
Yep. So I don't know if we're hearing from Carlene or Dawn, but let's go ahead.
This is Carlene and Don's here with me. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Well, we appreciate this opportunity to have this discussion. And as you can see, we wrote a lengthy description of some of the issues, which I'll just briefly summarize for those that don't want to read the whole document. But we're concerned about construction debris that's not being containerized, about disturbance of the not only limits of LODs, but also onto adjacent property. We're also concerned about hours of operation by various contractors, and finally signage. So those are 4 issues that we believe there's been recent violations, but not only recent, ongoing violations. And we will say that most of the contractors are respectful and follow the rules. And Dan Allen has always responded very quickly when we brought things to his attention. So this isn't a general indictment of what's going on here.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Carlene, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Having said that, we had 4 or 3 specific questions that I'll read. So our first question, are we as existing homeowners expected to monitor construction activities and routinely report violations? I mean, that's one question.
Sure. Let me hit that one first. In an ideal world, I'd say no, but we have a staff of 4 that work in this space. There's building going all around the town. They don't work till 7 p.m., which is the cutoff time for the construction guys. And so we aren't always aware. So we certainly appreciate it if you observe a violation, that you pass it on. I personally noticed the LOD issues and have challenged the guys to get out there and get that tightened up as well. So you're not the only ones that are helping the team get the information they need to do the job.
Sure, and of all these issues, the LOD is the most disturbing to us, and the disturbance down the existing vegetation down the hillside, which can lead to erosion and just general not appealing, and certainly is a major concern to us. So we're hopeful that there will be mitigation and that will be taken care of by the contractor.
Yeah, they get cited for that. They get fined for that. So it does hit their pocketbooks, and they and continued ignoring that, as well as the trash. They get cited for that, and then those result in, I don't know the exact frequencies, but we end up pulling permits if that's required to get them to pay attention. So
Okay.
they get letters from our engineering and public works team stating they have till, Friday or whatever to get it cleaned up or trash hauled away. And if not, we're taking their permits.
Okay.
But again, there's building going all over town. Every subdivision, there's building going on. The guys get down through them typically once a day, but we just can't be on every site all the time.
Of
So,
course, of course. And
and
we,
these guys, particularly, the late hours, if you can tell us the site number, the street address, whatever, that's really useful for us to call, to get to the engineering and public works guys so we can get a hold of, the builder and say, look, you're working too late. You got to knock it off. And, if you don't, we're pulling your permit.
okay. Well, and then the final sort of question we had was about notifications when there's a prolonged time period of disruption to traffic or other infrastructure services, because one of our street was blocked off for more than an hour, which prevented homeowners from going up and down, although they seemed to move the equipment for other contractors. So that was very disruptive.
That's, they are required to have a permit, and they've required, I believe it's 48 hours notice, when they're going to block a road. Of course, they don't always do that. So again, we need to know about that. As soon as we do, we'll get people up there to chase them off. These guys, I'm not making excuses for them, but what'll happen on their job sites is they'll arrange for a guy to come in to do, like a crane for an hour for a lift of some kind. And the guy doesn't know. He's coming to the job site. He was hired by it's one of the subcontractors. He shows up and starts setting up. He doesn't know he's supposed to have that permit, but the job site manager is. And so that's the one we have to go to for accountability, because we don't know who's coming to the job every day. So we're supposed to have enough notice to get a permit. And then with that permit, we would be then notifying community members impacted, community members in general, typically through our app, our Hideout Town app. If you don't have that on your phone, we highly recommend it. It is a way to get instant notices, and on the website. So
Right. When we do have the apps on our phone, and we appreciate that because we do get useful information. I guess just in summary, it seems like the majority of contractors, at least in our subdivision, are responsible and follow the regulations, but there may be one or two that consistently violate the regulations, and it seems like they need to be more encouraged to follow the regulations.
we support that entirely. And if we find that there's, a repeat offender on regular basis, or a repeat subcontractor of one of those contractors, ignoring those rules on a regular basis, we will request that subcontractor be removed from working in Hideout.
Okay, well, thank you for those explanations. We appreciate the time.
So thanks for bringing that up. Again, we take this very seriously. We care a lot about enforcing the regulations to keep people safe and to keep the jobs, under control. And so we will step it up again. and, get the word out that, any leniency that's gone on is going away if it hasn't already, and you need to get it right or we're going to pull your permits. So I think, Tim, you're on. So there's the message you can share with or Dan with the engine with those guys. That I've had it. I don't want to hear about this anymore from our residents. We need to do our workforce is not the town workforce, but the contract workforce needs to do a better job of staying in line.
Yeah, we will continue to monitor it. It's tough because I'll give you an example. I was up there today and had to cite some people and with their LODs, and I had to wait also and while contractors were delivering trusses. And so it is frustrating, I understand, but we'll continue to monitor it and we'll continue to find and encourage everyone to do it. And I just got certified to be a stormwater reviewer. So now instead of just doing inspections, if there's violations that I see, we can actually correct it. I can actually tell and have them corrected versus just inspecting it. So we're looking forward to helping move forward in that area.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Hey, Tim, this is Chris. I have a question about that. Your certified stormwater reviewer status. Congratulations. So I don't know what's going to happen next time we have a big rainstorm, but there seems to have been a stormwater runoff problem over at Claim across Highway 248. I mean, it hasn't happened in a long time because we haven't had any heavy rain, but is that something that you would be certified to be able to help them come up with a resolution? Yeah,
and unfortunately in that situation, it's kind of a problem that we need to work with Claim. They did have a lot of runoff there in that quick storm. It did flow as intended. That's exactly what UDOT wants it to do. Goes across their right of way just like that, and it does go into a drainage pipe and ditch off of the west side of 248, then it flows down into the Deer Springs area. So it's we just need to keep on them in regards to BMPs and construction stuff, that making sure that they're collecting runoff to where it needs to go, and just make sure that everything's being inspected and constructed appropriately. And so we have there's a lot of there's a lot of runoff coming off of the upper part of 248 down into the lower part of town. But I think we've got a handle on it. I know there's a couple of ditches that I've talked to Mayor about personally, and that we need to kind of maintain and fix, that'll kind of help these future drainage problems in the, as they come up.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, the next hand up is Kara.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Could you state your full name, please?
Yeah, Kara Byrne, Byrne.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having us on. Thanks again to all of you for your time. I've sent I think 3 emails now regarding our concerns with speeding and distracted driving in Hideout. I guess I'm saying Hideout as a whole, but I don't travel to the other neighborhoods or anywhere really outside of Deer Waters area. We live right on Shoreline, so I'm mostly talking about traffic in that area. I think my main concern is that I don't have a clear understanding on what the plan is to help mitigate the situation. We watched the speed bumps get removed, and we weren't given clear communication on what the next steps were. I think for me, as the mother of a toddler who has just learned to walk, and I do everything in my power to keep her in my driveway, and I will always keep my eyes on her. I'm mostly talking about when I'm walking with her in a stroller or walking with my dog. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Honey, come here, baby. Yeah, okay. We don't have a sidewalk, so I'm feeling a little bit trapped. And sorry. I feel a little bit unwelcome at this point because I haven't received any communication back. Mayor Rubin, again, thank you so much for your time, but I'm really struggling with the lack of communication on this issue. So
All right.
I'll just
I
leave that
thought
there.
I thought I answered somebody on that topic, but so we're currently in the middle of a paving project. Thanks for your comments, and we care very much about this. It's a big issue. We've talked about it multiple times at council. We're in the middle of a paving project, so that is we have to get that behind us, so that we can then work on the other mitigation elements. So we also have a traffic study underway to figure out where and what needs to go in to help do this. We have additional traffic speed signs to go in. We intend to add stop signs on Shoreline to require full stops in places, which will definitely slow folks down because there won't be a continuous stretch. And then we're looking to figure out where to replace the speed bumps to do the best job we can. We're looking at one down in Deer Waters and one up in the area of Shoreline 1. We're not sure exactly where that's going to go yet. So that's all coming. We have put in temporary stanchions to try and neck down traffic and slow it down. Unfortunately, when the big trucks come in, they move them because they have to deliver stuff to the sites and they don't always get back, and our guys don't always see that on the same day. So we're spending money replacing the ones that managed to get disappeared. But we're using temporary measures until we can get all the permanent stuff in. But I expect that we'll have results in the next 2 months with paving done and some stop signs in and replacing, getting the speed bumps in before the winter starts.
Hey,
I
Mayor,
hope that
this is
helps.
Chris. Are those speed bumps permanent, or are they going to be similar to what we had last?
No, we're talking about permanent ones, Chris, concrete type speed bumps and the guys are going to have to we're going to have to get smarter about the plowing so we don't keep smashing into them.
Awesome. I appreciate that update. And I'll review the minutes. I caught most of what you said with the, with the traffic study and then, your plans for mitigation. And then I think the only other thing I'll add to that is just generally, I just want to spread the message to our community to just please slow down. It's a matter of respect for those of us that do live at the beginning or at the end of the we have a lot more traffic than people that might live on these side roads. And I think, I talked about the communication, but in general, it just feels like there's a lack of respect. People are like, I hear them speeding up past the cones that are in our driveway. So I'm wondering, I've talked to some of my neighbors, can we put a message in the newsletter? We're all one community. Can we support each other? We've got small kids in our community. What can we do to keep this safe? I'm happy to help draft something to go into the newsletter. And again, in the spirit of us being a community and engaging in dialogue and doing this together, we're happy to be here. But man, does it feel crummy when I watch who I think are my neighbors, might not be, again, so I don't want to point fingers, but, totally disregard what's going on. So anyways, like I said, Mayor Rubin, I appreciate those plans for mitigation. I also appreciate you communicating with us moving forward even more. So what do you all think about maybe putting something in the newsletter?
I think
We'd
that's
be
a great
happy
idea.
we'd happy to have something like that in the newsletter. We do it from time to time as a reminder to people. In fact, before the first speed bumps went in, was a letter saying, slow down or you're going to get speed bumps.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
and then they didn't slow down. So we put them in.
Got it. Yeah, totally. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry, speaking of those speed bumps, maybe they could put the signs before the speed bumps because currently they've all been right at the speed bump, which
Yes,
doesn't give people a time
yes.
to slow down.
Mayor, do you want to address that one?
Yeah, we realized after this winter that they're not at the right height because they get covered with snow, and B, we need time for the snowplow drivers to see them and slow down before they get to the speed bump. So we know we have to back them up as well.
And the people
So,
driving fast too, if they actually see a sign for a speed bump, they might slow down instead of flying
Instead of-
over.
instead of
Yeah.
bottoming out, yeah, which is,
you-
we've been trying to find the ones that cause the most annoyance to driving. So it, once you go over it quickly once, you'll say, no, I'm not doing that one again because I just bottomed out my car. So unfortunately, we're having to resort to fairly aggressive approaches here, but I agree with you. Our community drives too fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
and I
about-
mean, we do see a lot of people with heads down too. And I'm not exaggerating when I say a lot of people. I would say if I were going to estimate, in the amount of time that I spend in my front driveway, because that's where the shade is. So we do play in that driveway. I would say about 25% of the drivers that go by have their heads down. So distracted driving is also a major issue in my eyes. So just something
Yeah.
to think about too. I actually don't know what an effective mitigation effort is for that. There might be other people on the council or even in our neighborhood that know, but that's a huge concern of mine as well, because I know that there have been fatalities. Like there was a fatality out in Camas a few years ago. A 5-year-old got hit and killed on a country road. I know that these things are more common than you might think. So scares the living daylights out of me.
I'm sure it does.
Any way we can do any enforcement too? I mean, it's great to have the speed bumps and the signs and the notices, but if maybe a little bit more enforcement, people get pulled over more often, the word gets out that there's actually enforcement of it, that might help as well.
We get 16 hours a week of police coverage specific to Hideout. Not just,
I don't think I've seen them maybe once or twice.
and there's a report coming up tonight where they'll tell you what they've been working on later in the meeting. We can certainly remind them that this is our key concern area, and ask them to focus when they are here specifically on the shoreline section of the road, because that's the one I hear the most about as well. And they're up at the roundabout because I've seen them there. And it's a great reminder. So far I haven't been tagged, which I'm glad to report. But yeah, so we'll get them on that. So I promise you they're here. They are geocache located. We know they're here. We get the geo reports. Each car has its own reference, so we know they're not just saying they're spending time here. They're actually spending time here. So, but it's all hours of the day and night. So it's not always prime time hours for traffic, but when they're here, we'll make sure they're focused there. The state does not allow us to use traffic cams for enforcement. It's a privacy issue. If they did, we'd use them, but we can't legally use them. So,
All right.
a lot of communities do it that way, and it'd be great if we could, but we can't.
Mayor Rubin, we do have Sheriff Rigby on the phone tonight, and he is happy to address this if you'd like to let him talk.
Oh yeah, sure. If again, I'm sorry, I can't see the list of who's out there at the moment. So yeah, by all means, Sheriff, please jump in.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I'm trying to get to the spot so you can see me as well. Hang on one sec. Okay, I hope I'm coming through all right.
You are, sir. No problem.
Oh, wonderful. So we do have a report, and I can wait till later if that's what you want to get into the specifics on it. But we really do love hearing the feedback and the input on specific roads, and where the residents are seeing that we need to be. They're there, 24/7 or something close to it. And so whenever they can be the eyes and ears, and whenever we receive reports through the mayor or any other ways, we want to get right on that. And so I've made note of those roads that have been mentioned tonight. And if there's any other questions, I'm open to those. And then I have more of a report later if you'd like.
But thanks, Chair. I think the number one thing is just that when the guys are here, it sounds like, as we get the traffic study finished up and we put in some of these other mitigating measures, we can, stretch your team further out around the town. But at least for now, let's when they're here during peak hours, let's focus on that Shoreline Drive section between the state park entrance and the roundabout.
Sounds great.
And then we'll get just to stick with the agenda, we'll get your report in just a little bit. Okay, Chris, any other hands up?
We had one other hand, but Ryan Noyes, I don't know if you still wish to speak.
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I just actually, as a resident of Deer Waters, wanted to be there to support Kara and her letter. I think she hit all the points that we have concerns about as a community. I know I have a young driver and have had him passed on Shoreline Drive by people who were exceeding the speed limit. And I do think this is a safety concern. And to Kara's point, it is also a neighborhood concern. We all need to be respectful of speed limits. And I appreciate the town council taking this seriously, and the mayor. The mitigation efforts you're talking about sound great. Things like raised islands and raised intersections and other things to slow people down will help tremendously. So thank you all for the efforts. And just to reiterate Kara's position, remember, we all are part of this community, and drive like you live here, because you do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't see any other hands up from the participants in the Zoom. I don't know. Yeah, there are no hands up. There are a couple of phone numbers, or one phone number. Alicia, what's? Oh, that is okay. Then I think we're good.
Okay, then I'm going to close public input and move on to item 7, which is the continued public hearing items. Now, I will open public input again about these, but these items have not come out of the planning commission yet. And so because we usually wait until there's a recommendation one way or the other from the planning commission before we look at them at council, I am suggesting to the council that we look at continuing these items until a date certain of October 12th, which is our next meeting. So, but before I ask for a motion on that, let's see if there's anyone who wants to talk about these at this particular point in time, recognizing that what comes out of planning commission may not be what you've already seen or observed from the prior planning commission meetings.
So Mayor, was that an invitation for the public to raise their hand?
Yeah, it's an invitation for anybody, any member of the public to speak on these items if they have a comment at this time. Again, just with the caution that what they have heard so far may not represent what actually comes to council, because the planning commission is still working on them. But if you got some thoughts, share them.
No, all right. I don't see any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay. Then what I'd like to get is a motion from council, one of the council members to continue these items to a date certain, being October 12th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second. This is Carol.
Thank you, Carol. All right. Ralph, how do you,
Yeah.
you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Chris,
Yes.
Okay, Bob,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
thank you. Okay.
Um,
I'll say yes too.
yeah, you
Oh,
didn't have.
Sherry, I'm sorry. Sherry, yes, thank you, thank you. Hard doing this on a telephone screen. Okay, well, let's move on to the agenda items. We have 2 reports. We have a presentation from the Summit Land Conservancy. Are they on, Jan? Again, I can't see it, or somebody tell me if they're on.
Can you hear me? I'm Kate Saddlemeyer with the Summit Land Conservancy.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you now.
Yes, hi. Okay. Good evening. Dan asked me to talk a little bit about conservation easements. You know, I could talk for a really long time about conservation easements, but I won't. I realize it's late and you have a lot of things to do as a town council. My name is Kate Saddlemeyer. I'm the VP of Conservation and Council for the Summit Land Conservancy. We're a land trust. We're based in Park City. We do open space work throughout the Wasatch back Summit County, Wasatch County, Morgan County, up to Weber. I just want to, you know, I'm going to kind of run through this kind of quickly, and then maybe questions at the end. Is that sensible, or?
Yeah, that works.
You know?
That
Yeah.
works.
Okay. All right. Maybe we just go on to the next slide there. You know, our work. I'm going to just talk a little bit about what conservation easements are. There's different kinds of transactions. I'm talking about conservation easement as opposed to conservation acquisition, like where you're actually buying fee title to the land and buying the whole thing, like you might have heard about with the Ure Ranch, with what the county's doing. That's an acquisition, but I'm talking about conservation easements, which you know, it's a voluntary transaction. It's between, you know, a willing landowner and a non-profit, so it can be a land trust such as us, or it could be a municipality or county. It's, you know, it's in the way that a landowner might decide to go ahead and sell their property, you know, let it go to development or some other use. A landowner could also decide, I want to keep it exactly the way it is, right? But I'm going to agree not to develop it. I'm going to sell my development rights or donate my development rights. So that's where we come in. That's what a conservation easement is. If we just kind of move on there, that'll be good. There's a few myths around what it's not. As I said, it's a voluntary transaction. You know, it's not really government involvement. There's government funding sources that come in. There's kind of 2 kinds that we do. There's where a landowner decides that they're going to donate the entire value of their conservation easement. So they're like, okay, I'm going to give up my development rights. And you might ask why they do it, and they will just do it. The number one reason they'll do it is because they love it, that they have some love for the land that they don't want to see it built on. That's one of the reasons. There's another incentive also. There's a pretty sweet federal income tax benefit, just like if you donate just a vehicle, or you make a big donation, the tax benefit to that. But the conservation easement benefit is much better. You can roll it over for about 15 years. So that's you know, that's one of the reasons why people donate. I don't know what I've got on the next slide. Let's move on. Sorry, it's weird talking to the Zoom, everybody. Hi out there. It's okay. So what we're doing here when we I just want to talk about conservation values for a little bit. When we go ahead and do a conservation easement, it's not just the development rights that you're selling. The ground that you're protecting has to have what we call conservation values. It has to have broader public benefits, and you know what they are. If you see these pictures here, you can kind of understand, okay, what are conservation values? I mean, people think wildlife, people think of our ridge lines, and, you know, keeping the herd, keeping the moose, keeping the sage sage grouse, Bonneville cutthroat trout in the streams, all of these natural resources that are really important to us. Water quality, we're focusing on more than ever, like keeping our development out of our watersheds, protecting that resource. We've got sustainability in agriculture as a conservation value also. We all like to eat. We like to have food grown in our area, just keeping that agricultural productivity. And then there's public recreation. At Summerland Conservancy, we have quite a few easements, which are public access easements. They're places that you go to. If you ever go to Round Valley, half of that is under conservation easement. If you do the Mid-Mountain Trail, going from Deer Valley all the way across Iron Mountain, across the canyons, we recently put Iron Mountain under conservation easement, and half of Deer Valley also. And a lot of this open public recreational land in our community, it wasn't free. It was put under conservation easement with a lot of hard work and public fundraising and donations. So that's something about conservation values. I'm not sure what's next. Let's move on. I just want to talk just a little bit about stewardship. Like we have, once we have something under conservation easement, we have to maintain it. So we actually take on a stewardship endowment at the time that the conservation easement is in place. We go and monitor our properties every year. It's about enforcement. So there's no point just kind of having a conservation easement if it's not enforceable. We keep our eyes on the property, and we rely on neighbours to help us with that also. So it's just stewardship is really important. I'll talk a little bit about what we've done. This is kind of says a little bit more about us. We have 50 conservation easements in the area, about 10,000 acres. You can see we've got just a range there. We've got the agricultural easements purchased. They're kind of the ones where we have federal funding. We have Farm Bill money, like the Osgothorpe 160 in the middle of the Snyderville Basin. That's one of our easements that we purchased. The Osgothorpe 120 also, which is next to Round Valley. And then there's other really exciting ones that I'm working on in the Camas Valley. So as you're driving down that hill, towards the food town there, that ground on your left, the wet meadow, we have our eye on that. We're working with some landowners in that meadow. That's actually a really important natural resource in terms of watershed protection. That ground there generates water. Like you should have seen it just in the, when the Weaver wasn't even running yet. The Beaver Shingle Creek was just generating its own water, and it's a very important water source to the Great Salt Lake. So that's kind of, if we go to the next map, you'll kind of see these are our projects that we're working on. This map makes the Camas Meadows projects look really small down there. We actually have more going on down there between Camas and Oakley. But you'll see the red ones are the ones that we're actively working on. The green ones are the ones that we can't get to because we don't have the capacity. And we've got our focus on these three watersheds as tributaries to the Great Salt Lake. So we have we'll go on, and then so I have like it's our For the Future campaign, where we're looking to protect our watersheds and just keep doing what we're doing. With our campaign, we rely on like donations to keep us going. We rely on willing landowners who want to do it. We rely on donors, foundations, and grants and private donors to keep us going, to keep the lights on so we can do it. it's complicated work. We have a staff of around 12 full-time people doing this now, and I love what I do. It's really exciting. And I don't know what else I have to say. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Okay,
Well,
thank you for presenting. Could you, there are a few efforts that you do with fundraisers, and I'm wondering if you could maybe quickly speak to how we in our community, if we wanted to participate through some fundraiser, rather than having, I know big developers come in and spend hundreds of $1,000,000 for this kind of stuff, but how can we as just private citizens help your cause, or come up
Oh my
with
gosh.
a solution?
We have a party coming up, which is a little bit more of a friend raiser than a fundraiser. It's the Hops Hunters at the Wasatch Brew Pub. I am forgetting the date right now. You just Google it. Hops Hunters. It's coming up in late October, early November. I can't believe I'm flaking on that date, but that's really fun. Okay, that's the first one we've got that's coming up. We've got Live Give PC. That's just a great community-wide event that we do, but we rely on Live Give PC for donations. That one's important to us. We just had our big gala, the Blue Sky Bash. That one's really fun also. I really like that one. We have that one in mid-August, but a lot of what sustains us is just donations. We have a monthly giving program. We have many different opportunities to be involved in that way. We really rely on and appreciate anything that comes our way, big and small. It's fantastic. So
Let me ask you.
Kate. Oh, go ahead, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Ralph. Go ahead. I'll come right. Go ahead, Ralph.
Oh, I actually have a number of questions. I'm not going to put them out at this meeting because I'd love to hear a little bit more on how you work with developers and how these easements passes from one to another, whether they're in perpetuity, how you value them, and also how you could tie it to development. We're looking at some active development, both commercial and obviously residential. So we'd love to learn a little bit more. Maybe you can attend one of our economic development committees, because I think conservancy could be really nicely tied to development if we can get both parties operating. So look, we have some Monday meetings. I'm sure Jan and I can coordinate something with you.
okay, yeah, I'd be happy to be involved. As for perpetual, yes, I can't believe I did that presentation without saying perpetual. I always do. It must be it must have been a big day. We have done some development work, particularly where the developer is tired and ready to stop. Sometimes we've worked on something with that where the development rights are still there, but they're looking to be retired, and the community wants that to happen. We've done some interesting transactions in that vein, which are quite complicated and involved, but I'd be happy to talk to you if we've got any ideas. So, yeah.
Thanks, Kate.
That's very interesting, Kate. I do think we want to follow up with you on that. The question I had was more on size, because we don't have thousands of acres. So the town of Hideout just isn't that big, but we do have couple decent parcels of land that might be appropriate for us to consider if we could, but I don't know if you guys have a minimum when you look at that.
One of my favorite easements is 0.7 acres, and it's the library field next to the library on Park Avenue. Like, we did that one a few years ago because there was an initiative to build community housing there, your workforce housing, which of course is really, really important. But it would have been 4 units on a field that was just used all the time by a preschool and by sledding kids and the dog walkers, and out in the summer. It was so many community events, and the community got together, and we put it under conservation easement. City. So they can be small, but it's got to have as long as it's public benefit. You know, it's not about neighbors. It can't just be in the backyard neighbors. It has to be
no, I understand.
wide benefit, community benefit. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we'll put our heads together and chat amongst ourselves a little bit, and then come back to you and see if some of the things we're working on might be a fit to partner with you on.
Okay.
Didn't realize
to meet you.
you were working, in Wasatch County as well.
Yes, we are. We've done some work in the Northfields. We actually worked with Heber City on a place called Muirfield Park next to the dog park. They bought 9 acres, and we helped them with a conservation easement, helped them with some financing for the purchase as well. So, yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
for
right.
joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. I will let you get back to your meeting. Take care.
Okay. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night. All right. Thanks. Next up is the sheriff's report. Sheriff, I appreciate your patience. Please come on back and bring us up to date.
Can you see me right now?
We can.
Okay. I'm not sure if, oh, great. We do have the attachments.
Yep.
Are you able to see those?
Yeah, they're up on the screen.
Okay, very good. So, thanks for making time for me to be here. We were supposed to do it about a month or so ago, and things got busy on both sides, and so I apologize for that. What we're really talking about here is the second quarter numbers for law enforcement services. And so we do about 50 hours in a month. And so overall with this report, let me try to get to the next page here. On that one, you can see some traffic stops. I'll be, given the conversation that we had earlier, I will go and look to see where the deputies have been spending time thus far and get that information back to the mayor if that's okay. But at the same time, given the streets that have been mentioned, we'll also focus on those moving forward. The next few pages are just the geo fencing for all the vehicles. And so they're really not anything super interesting, I don't think, for you all, but we do provide those. If anyone is interested in the geo fencing I apologize, the summary, it really is just showing once a deputy gets inside city limits, then that geofence is turned on, and so then they can log their time, and it's an automatic thing. It's not something that's personnel or manually done, if that makes sense. Okay, so one of the issues that we had in the second quarter is that 12 of our 18 patrol vehicles, we have more vehicles than that in the fleet, but the ones that are assigned to patrol changed out all in 1 month. And so for a month, we did not have the geo fencing report. And so anyway, we don't have super accurate numbers, but in all the times prior, when we've provided these reports, there has been and there will be going forward. Could we change it to maybe about the 4th page?
After the geofencing, the report, the detailed report,
Maybe it's the 5th then.
the detailed report.
Okay, so
Incident.
this is what council has indicated that they would like on prior occasions. And so if there's less information that you would like or more information, then please let us know. But this is really a summary of incidents that deputies have responded to in Hideout town. And so just as the overall gist to it, there are a number of kind of suspicious calls. Sometimes those are traffic related. And then when we get there and either the person is gone or we're able to track them down, there's probably a handful of those. There are, I think, 2 drug calls. Those are typically, those in domestic violence calls are typically on Deer Mountain Boulevard. Not always, but we also had a vehicle burglary. What that means to us is that someone broke into a vehicle. They did not take the vehicle, but they did steal stuff inside of the vehicle. And that one is also on Deer Mountain Boulevard. So that's definitely a hot spot for us. I think we all know that. Going down a little bit further, there's just a number of alarms, which is a good thing. We go to alarms regardless of the cause. And when we get there, then we find out the story behind it and confirm whether there really is a problem or whether it was a weather-related thing or someone that just forgot to set it or to enter without the code. Just a lot of times it can be pretty innocuous, but at the same time, they're taken seriously. There's a number of what I'd group together as kind of some disorderlies, and intoxication, citizen dispute. They don't necessarily rise to the level of a domestic violence call, but there still can be people that are yelling at each other and it just stayed verbal. And one neighbor calls us, and so we show up to try to make sure everything's fine and keep people safe. Make arrests if we need to, issue citations if we need to. And then if we can keep going down, there's another suspicious. We saw those before. I think what's left is mostly the citizen assist, some lockouts, the VIN inspection. All of those are kind of in a category unto themselves, which is basically just the deputies going over to help people in that area when they need help with this or that, and it's not necessarily a law enforcement call or a investigation, a criminal investigation they're doing, but instead someone's just asking for some help, and we want to be helpful to the citizens. And so that's how that goes. I think there were 2 or 3 accidents, but none of them serious. So the bottom line summary for this is that there's no major red flags. There's no major investigations to tell you about. I'm not seeing anything that is out of the ordinary. It seems to be what we are generally dealing with. And so if there's certain ideas or certain questions anyone wants to go over, we certainly can, but that's the report in gist.
Thanks, Sheriff. Council, any questions for the sheriff?
I had one, Mayor. Hey, Jared, Ralph Severini here on the council. Thanks for providing all your services. Hey, one question on the motion. I see about 8, maybe 10 motion kind of alarms. Are they with homeowners that have a central station motion alarm? Is that how do you get informed? I mean, it just a noise, the alarm goes off and you respond. How does that happen?
Yeah, you bet. So most of these alarms that come to us are through the 911 center. And when an alarm company calls us, And so there can be other circumstances, but they're just seldom. So usually what happens here is an alarm company will call us, and it could be a second home, or it could just be a primary home, but a lot of times it's secondary. And people will, the alarm company will say, hey, there's this smoke alarm, or there's this motion alarm, or here's a panic alarm. And so you can get a few different kinds of alarms. And so what we do is our relationship, in order to enforce alarms and be able to respond to them, is that we keep the homeowner involved, and in the whole relationship. And then if they don't register their alarm company, then we're talking with the homeowner about doing that. And so it becomes the homeowner's responsibility to register their alarm. Now, like health insurance or vehicle insurance or whatever, alarm companies will a lot of times do that for homeowners. And especially once they know, that county is one that requires us to register. And that's on the homeowner, and you know, they don't want their client to be kind of harmed by any of those things. And so that's when the alarm companies will then call us and say, hey, so I understand I need to get this residence registered, and it's a minimal thing, like $10. They fill out a quarter sheet of paper that has the basics of who's going to respond during an alarm and who we should get hold of. And so that's alarms in short.
Thanks. Do you get reimbursed by the alarm company in those cases?
Yes and no. So in the county ordinance, there is a way to do that. And it's not used a lot, but usually how it goes is that if there are 3 false alarms within a certain amount of time, like let's say 6 months. And so what that means is that deputies showed up. It wasn't a weather-related thing. It wasn't a person-related thing. It was, it's usually having to do with the technology of the alarm. And then we'll say that's a false alarm. And when a homeowner has 3 of those, then that's when they're assessed something like $50 or something like that to try to get them to fix whatever their technical problems are with their alarm.
Interesting. Should, you know, I mean, is there ways to, I didn't know exactly how that was set up. So, or how often you would respond, but it's interesting to have a bunch of them in here. Can we do any communications to our community to?
Yeah, I'd like to help with that too. So if there's specific ways through a newsletter or any kind of an event that you want us to come and set up a tent and we can try to sign people up for things and stuff, those are some common things we're used to.
Cool. We'll
All right.
follow up.
Thank you, Sheriff. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we're happy to, I mean, we have a newsletter. We're happy to just put it, you know, we put points of interest in it each month. So we can certainly suggest to our residents to, if you have a security system that's tied to, you know, an alarm company, then
get registered with us and we'll come out and
check with the alarm company if it's registered, and if not, then get it registered, you know.
Yep.
And most of my thought there, Jared, was to reduce the overhead of having 3 false alarms and spending your time not in a fruitful way. So if we can jointly work on that, that would be great.
Very good, thanks.
Sheriff, this is Chris Byer. So is there a page or a place where we can reference what those instructions are, how to register your alarm with the department?
Yeah, we've got it on our website, but we can also just call or email people. So I don't have any of it just right off the tip of my tongue. Do you want me to send you an email or what helps you most?
That would be helpful because I think I'd like to send it to Carol Custerly, who's our newsletter author, and just give her an opportunity to include, the exact information from your website instructions in our newsletter.
Great. Do you want me to send it through Alicia, or do you want to give me?
Yeah, Alicia's perfect. Alicia's
Okay.
perfect.
That's what we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for the sheriff?
Yeah, hi Sheriff Bob Nadelberg, Town Council. Thank you and thank your officers for keeping the peace, keeping order in our town. We're glad to have you here. Getting back to what some of the earlier residents said about the reckless driving, the speeding, the distracted driving, I can tell you based on personal experience, whenever I am on Shoreline Drive, that is the biggest offending stretch of road, especially the north end where it goes by all the residential units by Overlook Loop. When I'm standing there, if I'm riding my bike, I can tell you most of the vehicles are speeding well in excess of 30 miles an hour. I believe the speed limit is 20. If you guys can make that an emphasis item, an emphasis area, if you parked a car kind of semi-hidden at the intersection of Overlook and Shoreline, I guarantee you'd be pulling people over every 5 minutes.
Do you want to direct us towards any times of day, or is it just general?
Well, it's typically during the busy times of day. I'd say probably the worst offenders are the subcontractors that, they're rushing from job site to job site. I get it. Time is money, but they're not invested in the neighborhood. They don't have kids. They don't have pets. They don't have people that live there. But I also hate to say it, it looks like vehicles that are probably residents here. They also tend to be speeding as well. But if you could just have that as an area of focus, specifically the north end of Shoreline Drive, where the roads pass by all the closely spaced duplexes, I think the residents of the neighborhood would greatly appreciate that. And I think it would be time well spent in your department. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, we can I'll get with Tim and we'll get a little map together with some suggested stuff and send it in through Josh, Sheriff, if that's okay.
We'd appreciate it.
Yep. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much for being with us, and we appreciate it, and we'll see you at the end of the third quarter. Okay, let's see where we're going next. All right, agenda item 3. This is a pretty straightforward, but the state changed the rules on election notifications, campaign finance rules, and so we need to change our municipal code to match those. So Alicia or Cameron, you want to talk through that for everybody?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mayor. So the changes weren't necessarily substantial. There were some sort of language changes and reordering of the state statutes rather. And because our town code had a different and outdated language, trying to keep track with the legislature's activity every year is just time consuming and a little bit unnecessary, frankly. And so what we're proposing for the council to consider and potentially pass is to simply direct the hideout code to the state statute. And then as those statutes are amended by the legislature, which would require us to amend, it'll just automatically sort of take place and refer that to the right location.
Makes perfect sense. Otherwise, we're doing double work and it creates opportunities for confusion. So I support the thought process completely. Questions from council on the revision?
No questions. I think we should do it. Just reference the state code.
Yep.
And it applies to 4 candidates for this next election.
Yeah, it does. Okay, then what I need is a motion from someone in council to consider the adoption of an ordinance to repeal and replace Hideout Municipal Code 1.26 regarding campaign finance to comply with the state code 10-3-208 and 10-3-209, as we just discussed.
So moved.
Who was that? I'm sorry.
That's Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll second. Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. All right, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
thank you. Sherry
Yes.
and Chris.
Yes.
Thank you all. That has passed. We'll move on to the next one. Okay, this was one we had earlier, and you guys asked for some more information, so we provided that through Alicia. It's consideration of an approval to and potential approval to adopt an ordinance to amend the municipal code to require health department inspection and a fire department inspection prior to receiving a business license for short-term rentals. And just for reminder to everybody, there are two parts of Hideout that already have short-term rentals. One is Claim and one is Deer Springs Phase 1, I believe.
And Mayor, if I could just jump in to highlight the changes after the council's comments last month, I did change and add the language to require the inspections annually explicitly in there. And then, like you mentioned, we sent the detail on what those inspections entail.
Okay, thanks, Cameron, for that reminder. Council have any questions on the wording?
So I got the detail. So there's a public lodging facility inspection form from Wasatch County Health Department. I'm not going to display it on screen because it's somebody's actual form. But they ask the question, they ask various questions about the adequate surface drainage, potential health hazards, water supply source, wastewater system, bathroom and restroom facilities. So they ask about that, including plumbing fixtures, operation and maintenance. And then that's the inspection. And then there's a remark. So it looks perfectly reasonable. The Wasatch County Health Department inspection form. We also saw the Wasatch Fire District short-term rental fire and life safety inspection items. Oh, this one I think I can show because it's not
filled in.
It's not filled in. Yeah. Okay, I'll move that to my window. So this is their actual form. They're just verifying compliance. So your address is clearly visible from the street. There's a fire extinguisher with sizing requirements, smoke detector requirements, carbon monoxide alarm requirements, the interconnection requirement of these, egress window rules, extension cords, fire sprinklers, if equipped, need to be tagged with 1 year of fire inspection by a certified company, and then some storage items, and then if there's a multifamily, some additional items. It's a unit number, fire sprinkler, fire alarm, emergency exit lighting, and fire doors for multi-family buildings. So that's the full extent of the Wasatch Fire District's inspection item.
So Cameron, by the nature of the wording here, inspection approval by the Wasatch County Health Department annually, similar to what the last resolution, meaning we were referring to standards and changes to them when they occur. Is that implied here in B and C?
Yes, yeah, that Ralph, that's correct. It's the health department and the fire department are the ones that have the expertise for that. And as the fire code changes for commercial lodging or health regulations change, they're going to be the ones that would know what those regulations are. And so what we're going to do is that town staff is just going to require that inspection from each of those agencies on at least an annual or an application basis. And then once we get those, they'll apply their expertise and we'll get the report back.
Yeah, and so as they modify or upgrade their standards, it automatically then gets captured within this resolution, correct?
Correct.
Other
My
questions?
Yeah,
Sorry,
my
Chris.
question is about this A clause. Contracting the services of a property management company that is licensed in accordance with state and local ordinances and can respond on site within 30 minutes. How did we get to that 30 minutes? Because I remember asking that last time. Is this some kind of a standard that other municipalities have implemented, Cameron?
Yeah, that time frame has actually come up from other municipalities' experience, and there are a number of short-term rental advocacy groups and what's the sort of rental advocacy groups that have come up with some recommendations on this. The biggest issue is if there's a problem at a short-term rental home or other property. If there's a problem, we normally can contact the property owner because they're there. But in this case, it's somebody usually from out of town. And so we can't address problems as quickly as we could if there was another property owner that was here locally. And so this is one of the recommendations that the vast majority of municipalities require is somebody, a responsible party, to respond within 30 minutes in case that there's a problem. So if there's a loud party or a noise or a fire, flood, etc., we have somebody locally that we know and we can contact, or they can respond to deal with whatever problems come up.
You mentioned responsible party, but this says property management company.
Yeah, so it
Go ahead.
depends on the size of the municipality and the number of short-term rentals that they have. The choice of the property management company was made previously, so that section is already in the code. And so, you know, if the council wants to discuss that, we can bring that up. But my understanding is from the prior discussion is we wanted somebody, a professional management company, rather than, you know, my cousin Vinny that can respond. And so that's why that language was in there from the beginning.
Yeah, we some more than a year ago or so, when we were looking at these, back when we were looking at your Springs initially, whenever that was, we insisted on, you know, we didn't want them to go through a random VRBO or a random Airbnb where, you know, it's somebody who lives, you know, part-time in Arizona and the rest of the time up here or whatever. And if we don't get them at home because they're out to dinner or at a movie or whatever, we don't have a response. So we put into our code that if you're going to put your property on the short-term market, you have to have a locally available property management company. So that's why we're specific to that. Although I think Cameron was speaking more generally about the reference codes when he mentioned you know, property owner type stuff. Does that help you, Chris?
It does. I mean, I don't rent out nightly rentals, so I don't know if we'll get any pushback on that or not. I guess we can adopt it and then find out.
I can tell you, I mean, again, they can't be doing it now without a property management company. And if they are, then they're in violation of our current code.
Yeah.
So, and as somebody who does use Airbnbs or VRBOs from time to time, I tell you, I'm glad for that clause as a user because I've gotten to a place and the garage door code was wrong, or the battery hadn't been changed on the little keypad. And it was nice to be able to call somebody that actually answered the phone.
Yep, for sure. What is there any kind of, how do we enforce this? What's the penalty for non-compliance with this ordinance?
Well, what we are requiring again in our code, Chris, is that the HOAs of the subdivisions that have nightly rentals are required to monitor the VRBO listings and the Airbnb type listings, newspaper ads, whatever, looking for addresses, in Hideout that are listed, and then we can confirm them with the property management firms. So that's their job. It's part of their requirement to keep it. They have to give us a report that it's, they reviewed those and it's being managed properly.
Okay, we're not expecting reports from the Wasatch County Health Department or the fire district?
No,
Okay.
it would be either from the property owners themselves and or the property management company. And most property management companies require that same stuff because they're a vested interested party. And, their reputation of managing, quality properties is based on doing just that. And so they don't want, incidents where there are significant issues either. So most of them are pretty responsible about covering the bases there.
Okay, that's the end of my questioning. Thank you. I really appreciate the explanation.
Okay. Any other questions for Cameron on this one? Otherwise, again, we'll need a motion to, let me get the language right. Sorry. I need a motion to approve an ordinance and adopt an ordinance to amend the Hideout code to require a health department inspection and a fire department inspection before receiving a business license for short-term rentals.
Also move, Mayor. I think Cameron did a good job in making modifications. Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks, Ralph.
Mayor, don't you want to put in an annual inspection?
Isn't it already in there, Cameron?
Yes, it's at the end of subsection B and C.
That's what I thought.
Okay, you just didn't put that in when you were.
Yeah, we didn't put all the language in the language in the ordinance to the header of the ordinance, but yes,
right,
it's in there. So Carol, are you willing to second?
Yeah, so I'll move.
Thank you. Okay, then let's poll the council. Bob?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
All right, and Ralph?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Motion carries. Ordinance is approved. The next item is a discussion item. I'll talk about it, and which is it's not actually the language that's here, but I'm going to talk about water for the town of Hideout. So the town of Hideout buys water from the Jordanelle Special Services District. It buys it at a wholesale level and then redistributes it to homeowners at a retail level through metering, water metering in the homes, and or through a reservation fee that homeowners pay prior to actually building landowners pay prior to actually building a home. That contract was written in 2010-ish. And it is fairly complicated and not super clear. And we've been working hard with legal experts to get to the bottom of it and understand exactly how much water Hideout is entitled to. That process has gone on for nearly a year. maybe a little longer, and we're still not satisfied with where we are. So we have established an independent working group made up of experts in the space that are not neither hideout residents, hideout developers, or in any other way. They're water experts in the state or in the state of Utah from a number of different elements. So we've got engineering, we've got hydrology, we've got legal, we've got financial, and we've got state records, water state records experts working on a team to help us find out and document the history of assignment of water to the town of Hideout. That contract with JSSD could be anywhere from roughly 300 acre feet to roughly 450, depending on your interpretation and what we're entitled to. And so we've got to sort through that to understand our baseline. And so that's what's going on with that committee. We've had one meeting. We have another meeting scheduled towards the end of the month or early in October to see that progress. We're pulling records, state records, doing mapping, checking liens and stuff like that to see what's out there. When we have that figured out, we'll be able to come back and say, here's where we stand with the current contract and against what the benchmark usage is for JSSD, which is 0.45 acre feet per household, roughly. It changes a little bit with condominium type units, but roughly 0.45 acre feet. We'll figure out what the gap is, if there is a gap, and what that gap looks like. My initial analysis is that there is a gap. The gap exists in what I'll call old Hideout, the Hideout that's under the master development agreement. The new subdivisions that have come in, Deer Springs, Deer Waters, Claim, Lakeview, have been required to bring their own water and have will serve letters from JSSD confirming that. So those subdivisions brought water, and so there's no issue with them having been added to the town. And the town, as most of you know, if we look at any other, we've done that with any annexation or new build, and we're doing the same thing with anybody else coming forward. We whether it's the Bloom subdivision or anything else, you have to bring water. So there is a shortfall, in my opinion. It's probably 200 acre feet, give or take, and that's an estimate. You cannot quote me on that because I don't have the final numbers. That's what this committee is doing for us. But I'm assuming that there is a shortfall, and we are investigating sources for, procuring water. There are several opportunities in hand that we're looking at. I probably have identified 50 acre feet that's available for purchase. We're working on some language right now. Hopefully the goal is to have the study work that's going on with this water committee dovetailing with the timing for the need to do these purchases, so that we can, come back to you and seek your approval to get to go into a contract to buy these shares. There's a lot more to it than my brief overview, but again, I don't want to put up spreadsheets and numbers yet because that's what the team is investigating. So that's kind of where we are. The goal is that over the next couple of months that we'll get to the bottom of our research, hopefully, and be in a good position to sit down with JSSD and either agree with them on a number or push back if they don't agree, and with the documentation we have to be able to say, well, then we'll see you in court. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. We have a great relationship with them, and I anticipate that they'll continue to be working well with us. So that's my summary. I'll open it to council for questions.
Hey, Mayor, it's Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for continuing to pursue this. I know we've already been in discussions and I attended that first session, but I know we're supposed to keep, let's keep this independent. But the only addition I thought we'd have is, get this done as quickly as possible. Obviously, I know that's your goal, but also have some updates. Certainly, it's such a critical issue for the town for all kinds of reasons. So that we have some kind of update from the commission on a month,
Yeah, we can do that. No problem. We can do that on a monthly basis. That makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe it comes from one of those folks, or we have different folks attend, so to speak. So we can figure that out. But so it's so critical. Let's get a monthly update.
Yep. Can do that. Other questions from council? So I would like to remind everyone that, again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but in the MDA area of Hideout, there were roughly 1,800 units, give or take, approved prior to my first administration. And so, unfortunately, if there is a shortfall, it's, we'll have to figure out, how that happened, but it appears as if the prior administrations may have approved more units than they actually had the water to support, but we'll find out. Okay.
But Mayor, my question, is about the water commission that you're talking about versus what's in our Muni code. And just, are we thinking of setting up the water committee as described in our code, or is this a different kind of organization?
Yeah, it would be once we know all the ins and outs of what we have, what we need, and so forth, then I think we have a firm view of what we're asking that commission to manage. Today, I don't know what to ask them to manage because we're still not clear on, what are the pieces of the puzzle. So yeah, my goal would be that we would look for a water commission that's in our Muni code to take this on once we say, okay, we've got X here, Y here, and our options for, gap closing are buy, drill a well, whatever. And we'd like to set up a commission to go work on this moving forward. We're also tracking, consumptions. The engineering guys have done a whole lot of work based on, the meter readings and what we think are logical cut points for water. So, another approach is to encourage conservation. We find, for example, that most months, most units use 6,000 gallons or less. And yet we allow up to 10,000. So there's no real incentive for being super disciplined about it as a user, because you don't get dinged until you use 10,000 gallons. And since most folks don't, they can, not be so concerned about it. And so, that's another piece of the puzzle we're working on, is conservation steps, is understanding where should the cut points be, where are the incentives. We're exploring, there's a state program to xeriscape, and the state is incenting, because Utah, it's not just Hideout, Utah has a water problem. And so the state is incenting communities to look at ways to xeriscape. And they're paying, X dollars per acre to help support that changeover. So those are all parts of what this water committee could take on once we understand, what our goals are, and what our goals are for that group to manage. So I don't know if that helps you or not, Chris.
I'm just wondering if the group's going to be made up, are we sticking with the ordinance the code as written, or are we, thinking of a different group composition? That's kind of specific, right? It says how many people can be residents and not residents, and nobody can have an interest in development, and it's pretty specific.
Yeah, we'll have to, when we understand the situation, I think we can look at that code and say, how should we address that?
Mhm.
It may be perfect just as is. It may be that we think we have to do some little bit of different work on it. But
okay.
I think, I'm trying to, I don't want to get, I want to, we have a group working on it, which with very highly qualified folks. And I'd like them to, get through this piece of the puzzle before we start helping them. Because they know this space way better than all of us.
Yeah, so this group is meeting. We don't have any reports from them or any summaries.
Well, we only had one meeting. We've only had one meeting, Chris, and I did that before I left on vacation. I'm in the midst of a 3-week break, and then when I return, we're having a meeting, and everybody had homework. There is a note path forward item. I think I copied council, but if I didn't, I will, with who's doing what.
All right, so it feels like an exploratory commission, right? We haven't really, they're exploring options, but it's not the committee as our town code.
It's not the committee as the code says. Yeah.
Gotcha.
No,
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Because again, I think I need that before I can. I think we need that before we can say to the committee, here's what you have to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Because they're going to ask the same questions we're asking. Right. So.
Well, the big difference is what you're doing with your exploratory commission is you're working on it and trying to reach some kind of recommendation. The actual committee would have to have public meetings and transparency, which is a different thing than this exploratory commission that you've got going.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's fine, but we can have public meetings as we're doing now, but we don't know with any certainty, what all the pieces of the puzzle are yet. And that's what this group is doing, is nailing down the evolution of water in the town of Hideout from before it was a municipality till present.
Great, thank you. So we should expect some kind of recommendations coming out of this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
exploratory commission that you have. Okay, thank you.
There'll be recommendations for what we should look to target with JSSD, what we can, what our code allows us to do with undeveloped lands, unplatted lands inside the town, and what we can do with the consumption data and drive environmental, conservation there, and so forth. So we've got, there's a whole list of things, and there may be more than this group's considering, but again, they're pretty expert in the space. So, but we may find some surprises. But we'll get to that when we get a little bit further down the road. So we'll have again, I'll share the report, which is just a path, who's doing what right now. And then next month, I hope we'll have, as a result of that, we'll have some actions executed. So we'll have learned some things that we can share as well, and keep knocking down the action list.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there's no more questions on that, then I'm going to turn it over to Jan, who's been working on better understanding the idea of disagreeing better. As a brief introduction, many of you know, with the onset of public media, that a lot of times voices are raised with opinions, not necessarily facts, lots of finger pointing and so forth, and that creates unpleasantness amongst community members. There are people who are posting on Nextdoor. There are people who are blogging. There are people who are using other mechanisms, Facebook pages, and so forth. And in using that to as a mechanism to share their concerns, and not necessarily sharing those with the town. And oftentimes, some of these concerns are not. Oftentimes, the ways the concerns are presented to the town are highly aggressive. And so Jan's done some thinking about how do we stop being quite as disrespectful to one another. So I'll let Jan talk you through this.
Okay, so the governor has adopted an initiative called Disagreeing Better, and it's the mayor did a great job in outlining that. It's promoting respectful, dignified, inclusive communication, and strive to reduce fear of retaliation or personal attacks. And the league has asked that local governments adopt a code of conduct, and I'm working with the league on they're implementing a code that they'd like towns to implement. So that's still in the works. But we've also been working on ways that we could increase communication with the residents and get more facts out to our residents and landholders. And so it's in the works, and we're evaluating different software packages. We're trying to figure out how we can get more coverage with Poly Platform, which we've already initiated, and working toward a retreat in January where we can have a discussion with all landholders, all community members on resolving conflicts respectfully. So that's just basically where it is, and I will continue to update as I work with the league.
When Jan mentions the league, she's talking about the Utah League of Cities and Towns.
Right.
So as Jan also mentioned, we're looking to figure out how we can. We have our newsletter and we have our app, but the reality is we're not as aggressive as I'd like to see us in sharing information, news about the town and its activities, things we're working on, and so forth. We're trying to figure out how we can step that up. So we're looking at talking to some communications people and see what other mechanisms, or how do we be more proactive in that. You know, our issue is that we have a small staff. The staff is busy, and it takes time to sit back and write dialogue for newsletters. So we've got to figure out how do we extract the news as easily as possible for the staff, so that then convert it into communication tools, communication mechanisms. So, you know, we have, you know, multiple construction projects going on in the town. We talked about paving. We talked about, last time we talked about the sewer project down in front of, on the utility easement between the between Shoreline 2 and the State Park. I know our residents are unhappy with that, and you know, wish we weren't doing it in this nice season of ours. But if we don't do it now, we can't do it in the winter. So we have to do the work. But we need to do a better job communicating about that. We also had a comment tonight about road blockages, for example. You know, we need to have we have a policy that says you have to give us notice, but when it doesn't happen, we got to get, you know, as soon as it happens, if we can't clear it instantly, then we need to make sure people know about it. In case of, you know, water breaks or any water line breaks and stuff like that, those things are unplanned, and those things have to happen with communication. So we need to do better. And Jan's working hard on helping us figure out how we can do that better.
Hey, Jan, is there a set of guiding principles that go along with disagreeing better?
Yes.
We have a leadership principle at Amazon called have backbone, disagree, and commit. And it's all about getting to a direction. You can't enforce that at a government or town level, but maybe we should post what those principles are in terms of how we want to communicate with one another, both within this group and as well as with all our townspeople.
Yep. I'm happy to post what the league has so far, some guiding principles, and as soon as they come out with their code of conduct, we'll return to this topic.
Okay. Anything else for Jan on that one? All right. The next item 7, is consideration and possible approval to amend the MDA for the claim subdivision to require the subdivision's trails to be maintained by the HOA. Cameron, are you familiar enough with this to talk about it?
I can give it a run through, Mayor.
Oh, Thomas, great. Yeah, Thomas, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. This is a pretty straightforward one. You all are familiar with the claim subdivision. It's a total of 88 units, and the town council gave the final plat approval for phase 4 on August 11th of 2022. Part of that approval included the resolution associated with that had the conclusions of law, the conditions of approval, and the findings of fact. One of those conditions of approval was number 7. You can see it there. It noted that the trails would be maintained essentially by the HOA, and that they would be open to the public. And so the initial claim MDA that was executed in 2019 had an addendum page that noted that that wasn't terribly clear about who would maintain. Actually, it noted that the town would maintain, and noted that it was primarily for the residents of the property. So this is really an update to the MDA to ensure that it meets the requirements of Council and Planning Commission per the resolution. Chris Ensign, the developer with Solstice Development at Claim, is fine with this. He's reviewed this, and this is really just executing one of the conditions of approval as part of the resolution.
Thanks, Thomas. Questions for Thomas?
No, I'm just, not a question, just thanks to Thomas. This is good cleanup. We well, when I give the post report, we'll talk a little bit about trail maintenance, but this is an important update. And I really appreciate you putting this forward for us.
Thanks. And just kind of as a way of updating council, we're still working with Claim. Of course, they're in phase 3 and phase 4 construction right now. Phase 4 should probably, assuming all goes well, finish up spring of next year. And then I think Chris will probably, I think you'll give an update, but we'll coordinate with, Post will coordinate with them to finalize the trails in and around the Claim subdivision. There's a few things that I also noted that we're coordinating with them to finalize the landscape plan, some visitor parking, moving some of a little bit of that got moved around. There was a lack of space, and then just coordinating with Chris Ensign and Tim Dixon on the dirt pile. One side of that in particular, the one below the Wolf property, did not revegetate as well and will be rehydroseeded. And so we'll be working with Chris Ensign to make sure that that gets executed and completed.
I know we talked a little bit more about doing more than just hydroseeding on that. Where do we stand as far as maybe replanting some actual brush?
I think at the last meeting, Chris Ensign, the developer, was open to that. I met with Chris about a week and a half ago on site with regard to a few other issues. And we had a conversation about it. I think he's willing to do that. He knows that a portion of that did not hydroseed terribly well. And so he and I are going to meet with his landscape architect to see what we can do to kind of finalize some things in Claim and over there as well. So I will I'll coordinate that with him and see what his response is.
Thank you, because we just want to make it look better.
Yeah,
we know how bad that dirt pile looks.
It is rough.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Anything else for Thomas on this particular item? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for by a poll to get the council to. Cameron, do I have to make a motion because it's a resolution, or what do I have to do here for this?
No, I think just a motion to authorize you to sign it and execute it.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking, if there are no more questions for Thomas on this one, I'm looking for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign an amended MDA for the Claim subdivision to require the subdivision's trails to be maintained by the HOA.
I'll move.
Thank you. I think that was Carol.
Yes, it's Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Someone will second that?
I'll second it,
second.
Sherry.
Thanks, Sherry. This is Claim. All right, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Thank you. Sherry
Yes.
and Carol.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next item is discussion and possible approval of RFP R5 for town-owned land at Ross Creek. I'm going to turn it over to Jan. Are you there, Jan?
Yes, and Thomas and I have been working
Thomas.
on this, and basically it's a public process. This is town-owned land, which means it's owned, collectively by residents. And so we have to go through this process, and we're working in collaboration with MIDA and putting out an RFI. And I'm going to let Thomas speak to this.
Okay.
Sure. So yeah, this is kind of a follow-up. As you all know, we've continued to look at the property at the intersection of Shoreline Drive and Bellevue Way. We have about 10 acres that are town-owned there. That was dedicated by Nate Brockbank. And so we've coordinated a bit with Planning Commission, a little bit with some of you over the course of the past couple of years. We've created a concept plan for a town center there. And so as Jan and I really looked at opportunities for next steps. We're certainly not ready for an RFP, a request for proposal. So the idea of a request for information came up. And so the idea would be that we could get maybe some design input, some development thoughts, what somebody might do with the, you'll see at the bottom of that introduction paragraph, with the opportunity that the town may, depending on the submittals that are received, may work with somebody to look at something a little further. That's kind of an incentive for somebody to provide their design expertise, their development expertise, that we might look at something that would maybe lead to disposition of the land, whether that's a sale or a long-term lease. We haven't thought that through. There's nothing in the RFI that mandates that the town do that, carry it to that extent, but we're open to that. And I think that that might be quite an incentive to get some really good ideas from around the area, maybe around the country, what people might do there. This RFI is basically an RFI that was used down in Salt Lake for the Granary District. They were doing a very, very similar thing. And so this is really kind of built off of that as a framework. We've included some basic property information in this. You can see there, we've talked a little bit about the MIDA component that is associated with this property. We've incorporated some guiding principles relative to land use, public space placemaking that we would like for a party that submits to address. There's nothing formal about the submittal. We've left it open, so people may submit narratives, designs, photos. We don't know, but we've left it a little bit open because it is just for information and ideas. If you go to the next, content of subdivisions, again, this is just asking that a submitting party address these issues. To what extent they do that is really up to them. Then we've got the submission requirements. I think we put in a date here, Friday, November 17th. I don't know if that's set in stone, Jan, but that was a date that gives us a couple of months to get this out, to let parties kind of ponder it, maybe visit the site, and then provide information. If you go
Right.
down, go ahead.
Oh, and just, you know, this time of year is when developers are slowing down on their projects and they do consider these new projects. So I think November is a good time for it.
And that kind of gets them done with it before the holidays. As part of this package, if you scroll down just a little bit further, you'll see that we've got, you can keep scrolling down, there's kind of some formal language here. That's their submittal attachment. We've got the property outlined per the parcel data. And then if you scroll to the bottom, the one right below, kind of really that's kind of what is probably the usable area that's outside of any of the potential UDOT road realignment that's a little bit to the north. If you scroll down a little further, we show some slope analysis so they get a sense of what the terrain of the land is. And then we've incorporated our general plan vision statement, some of the goals that are applicable to this property, kind of where it's been with the community and town council, as well as planning commission input at the bottom, thinking of mixed use, town center, cafes, kind of your basic kinds of things. The next page up is the concept plan and idea board. This is what was presented to the planning commission. I think you guys have seen this, but just a, you know, really high level concept, kind of precedent images, thinking about how that property might be used. Of course, keep in mind, we do note that the public works facility is on this site. That would have to be moved. We are looking at options for that on the other 7 acres that the town owns in conjunction maybe with the fire station, et cetera. So that's noted within the RFI that would have to move. And then we've got some renderings here that kind of show what it could look like. Again, this is it's an initial vision. We leave it open to the submitting party, what they think would be appropriate there, but this is kind of a guiding document to let them know where we've been to date as a community. And then I think the next pages are really just some of the MIDA information that maybe just gives them a real quick kind of cursory background about MIDA. They'll certainly have to research it so they understand it, but making sure that they understand that they are in MIDA. Then we have the town zoning map kind of as a site context, letting them know exactly where it is. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've reached the end.
Okay. I'm happy to answer any questions. Certainly, Jan has information as much as I do and more.
Just for my information, when you do send this out, how do you get it in people's hands? Like, how do you let people know we're encouraging submissions?
We're going to get as broad a coverage as we can. There's a state site that we'll be posting to where people go to look for jobs like this. But we'll also post, I think we should go to the national planning boards, and there are a variety of user groups that will facilitate.
Yeah, we even thought we could go to APA, the American Planning Association, as Jan noted, or AIA, the American Institute of Architects, or ASLA, the American Society of Landscape Architects. Almost all of their websites have an RFP or RFQ kind of section. RFI would fit under that category. So we might get designers who might want to partner with developers and share their ideas. And so we thought it's almost like a design competition in some ways. We're really just throwing it out there and hoping that, private designers, developers, those with expertise on both the financing and the design side might submit and take a chance, knowing that, hey, they could end up partnering with us to develop a pretty interesting piece of property.
That help, Chris?
Yeah, totally exciting. I hope there's a lot of creative responses. I just, with anything, how do you reach people? We always struggle to reach people. We talk about that in the community, even amongst ourselves, but, getting that reach out to qualified, responders. I'm just curious, how do you find them? So you answered my question.
Yeah, we'll keep digging and adding it to websites where we can.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Other questions for Thomas or Jan?
I just want to say thank you. I'm excited about this.
Yeah,
I left the renderings up because they're like, wow, hey, this one I can actually see in my mind. This one, I guess I could see that one too. But, just like, it just gets the creative juices going.
Yeah, we would certainly, part of this process would also be to share, with the community and get community input as well.
Absolutely.
That's the reason we're doing this, is to, generate a place that the community wants to use. And, we're counting on that to generate revenue for the town. So we certainly want to build something that people are saying, yeah, if that was there, I'd go there.
Is that a potential other newsletter item or another poly-platform item where we could just let people know this is happening?
Yeah.
Alongside, the Wasatch County Sheriff instructions on how to register your, alarm system.
Yeah,
Sure.
we can.
We can provide links too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a public process. The RFI is out there. We can provide a link to the RFI. People can read it and understand.
I think if the community knows about it, they might get some brilliant ideas, or maybe they know somebody who might respond.
Right.
Because they care, because they live here or they will live here. So, I think that's also a good idea to just let the community know this is happening and that we're looking for responses.
And I think we should be clear, you have RFP, RFI in the agenda. The good part about, I think, the direction we're going now, as where we in the beginning was a proposal usually means you're making a decision on something. At least that's the way it's typically done at the state level. But an RFI, you're not locked into anything. So
Right.
that's
Now,
just-
this is information only, no
Yeah.
commitment by either side other than the work they do.
Yep.
To, bring some renderings to our attention.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go here. So we're not locked into anything. So a little bit more on Chris's point, because that's always really is this going to get any teeth into it? And that's the distribution. Do we know what some similar, I mean, Thomas, I think you picked up some of this from another entity. Do we know what their response rate was over a period of, say, 2 months? Do we get any input from them as to what they were doing? Did they do an RFP or did they do an RFI, RFC?
They did an RFI.
Uh-huh.
Ours is
And-
completely mimicked on theirs. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have any, can you give us any, like, what happened? Any interesting story around that? So we
I
kind of,
I don't
maybe
know
we
the
can improve
details.
upon it?
I know that the Granary District, I should reach out to the individual who sent this out to see what they did get. I do know the Granary District did get a fair amount of input, design ideas, creative input, I presume as a result of this, but I know that that area also generated a lot of local and state interest. So I don't know exactly what percent came from this, but I have a couple of friends down in the valley. I could ask them what they got. I don't know specifically though. Do you, Jan? I don't know. Exactly.
Rob Sant does, and he will be on a meeting next Monday, and we can ask him as well.
Okay. So, I mean, any kind of best practices once you release this, and I think that would benefit the impact that we're going to make. So,
This is something that MIDA has agreed to help us with. And so, yeah, we're working with them on it.
Yeah, and they certainly have the mechanisms. I mean, look what they've done up on 15 North. 15 North up by the Air Force Base. I mean, they got tons of interest with that one. So, and they seem to be doing well with the interest across the reservoir as well. So, they should be able to point us in the right direction.
yeah, they obviously have a lot more experience than we do.
And have a lot of contacts.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll help. So what I need for official purposes is a motion to allow the town to issue an RFI for potential development ideas at the Ross Creek entrance.
Also move, Mayor.
Thank you, Ralph.
Second.
Thank you, Bob. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Sherry?
Love it. Yes.
Okay. Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
And Ralph?
Sooner the better. Yes.
Okay. And yes, and while not part of the motion I just asked for, we will also make sure we get on the communication to the community and make sure that gets out there. People are aware of what we're working on. All right. So that takes us to the end of the agenda items, but we do need to do council minutes and committee upgrades. There will not be a closed session tonight. What I'd like to do, given that I'm sitting in the truck on the side of the road here, is turn it over to Chris to finish up the meeting and personally drop off and let you guys finish up without me so I can get back to my campsite and visit with my family.
That sounds fine. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you all. I'm stepping out and we'll let Chris finish it up. Thanks everybody for your participation tonight. Don't hang up, just me.
All right, bye, Mayor. All right, we're going to move on to approval of council minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes here. One is older, from May of 2022, but then, and another one from March of 23, but then, wow, the last 2 are minutes from our last meeting last month. So this is very exciting. Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome.
All right, so did any council members have an opportunity to look through here and have any feedback or changes?
I looked at all of them and I had nothing to change. I thought it was a great job.
Thanks, Carol.
I mean, very clear. Everything was very clear. Thoroughly
Good.
described.
I also thought the same thing. I don't know. Alicia, you're phenomenal here. I don't know.
Yeah, you're amazing.
Thanks.
I see a lot of action items that were in there. So when we get to that, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that shortly. Any other council members have comments? All right, Alicia, I highlighted, this is in the second set of minutes. Right here on this second page, you refer to a Randy, and I couldn't figure out Randy who.
I caught that too when I sent it out. And I will ask Jan and get the last name. I think it was something that Jan was talking.
Yeah, if you could add that, that would be helpful.
You bet.
And then just another name, I think O'Rourke. Is this the correct spelling, like no apostrophe or capitals? I just want to make sure if we know the correct spelling that we use it.
That's how I wrote it down on my sign-in sheet. And if I wrote it down that way, that's how he spelled it in his, when he signed into Zoom. So
okay, then there's
I thought
no
it was a
problem.
little odd myself. I'll double check that before I finalize those.
Okay.
But yeah.
Those are my only 2 pieces of feedback. So Alicia, with the approval of these minutes, are we caught up?
No, not quite yet.
No, not quite. Okay.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Okay. Well, when you do get caught up, we will have to have a party.
I will.
Or something. Okay. If there's no further comments, Cameron, we can approve all the minutes in one motion, right?
Yes, as long as that's the motion to contain all the motions for all those dates.
Okay. So the motion, be looking for a motion to approve the minutes of May 4th, 2022, March 9th, 2023, August 10th, 2023, the regular council meeting, and August 10th, 2023, the Truth in Taxation public hearing minutes.
I'll move.
Thanks, Carol.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, Bob.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
And Chris. Oh, yes. I wasn't faking there. I actually had a froze moment, but okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, then we're going on to our last topic area, and that's our committee updates. Do we have anyone from the Planning Commission?
Chris, do we want to go through any of the relevant follows? Typically, we do that after approving the minutes.
Oh, thanks, Ralph. I completely skipped here. Follow up, Ralph. Yes, go ahead. Let us know what follow-ups you have. Ralph, you could start.
I had a few. I'm not sure I want to bore everyone with them, but things like if you look in the first set of minutes on line 17, this goes to what you were asking for, and I think some others, maybe like myself, was getting getting more input through surveys. And I know guess what we were talking about that the other day technologically here, but that to me is an important ingredient of all of what we're doing. So let's capture that officially because it did come out in the minutes. And then there was a couple of others. I'll try to just go through this quickly. Thomas, we talked about 3D modeling and at some point making that potentially codified in certain, maybe in certain scenarios. Is that in our ordinances at this point? We talked about it, but for, certainly for large projects, particularly as we're getting, RFIs and things like that over time, that we consider that as a piece of our ask.
We do actually have that in the ordinance right now for large projects, specifically for sensitive lands, and if there's the need to maybe move density or look at it differently than maybe just the typical area and bulk standards, the setbacks would dictate. So we do have some of that in there now.
Can you come back to that? My suggestion on this, come back to the next meeting with, is it wide enough as we do like larger projects and commercial projects and other things? And maybe
well, let's look at that. I think the answer is yes, but let's look at it. And also keep in mind, we're getting ready to work with the Planning Commission probably at next month's meeting on some kind of minor code updates that are all over the board in terms of different zoning designations, different parts of the zoning code, just things that we've realized over the past couple of years. Oh, I wish we had that in there. Oh, we need a little bit of clarification there. And so maybe now's a really good time to look at it if we think we want more. It's not to say that we can't add it as we do code updates.
Right. And then there's a few others here that I see. There was also something that Polly had brought up and on page 4 of 12, or it's actually page 7 in the document, the PDF, on line 39 about phasing. And she was pointing out that there was a lack of detail on how we specify phasing. Do we, another thought for you, Thomas, maybe, especially as we're developing things around these RFIs, do we have any, are the words that we describe phasing in complete enough for what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, just keep in mind, this one was specifically relative to the boulders discussion. We did not feel that we had good detail in terms of phasing. And in fact, there were disagreements between the Planning Commission and the applicant at that time with regard to what went in what phases. And so we were leaning toward much more specificity in the phasing. And of course, the developer did not want specificity in phasing.
And I'm thinking of making this generalized a little bit more, Thomas, that we think about this as, for projects. Do we have a baseline, so to speak, around phasing that we're comfortable with as a town that we expect? And I think we're going to see more of that anyway, particularly if we do any other further annexations. I don't know if there was any other major. There's a couple of other submission of architectural guidelines, a condition of MDA approval. I think you proposed that? I'm picking on you here because a lot of this was in relationship to key areas of design and to project planning and how we can improve the way we do this. In particular, I think some of these are at the right time. So that was online on page 11 of the document, line 16. You can refer to that, Thomas. And then Carol Thomas on page 13 of the document expressed concerns about undisturbed land and our definitions? Do we need a better, a lot of this is, related to development and zoning and some of our ordinances in that regard, and maybe how we can get better. So if you looked at page 13 on line 9, she expressed concern. So, that maybe the definitions weren't quite as clear as they could be. Anyway, I'm not saying we need to do anything, but maybe we should at least revisit those areas to make sure that we're comfortable with them going forward. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
those are the code kind of cleanups that we want to look at. I think that our undisturbed land definition is actually quite good in the sensitive lands ordinance. I think so, but again, it's always worth looking at. So yes, we'll look at it. I would also say with regard to the MDA, when it comes to phasing and guidelines, et cetera, an MDA gives us wide open opportunities to be as detailed or not detailed as we want. The idea behind an MDA is it's relatively project specific. It meets the base underlying zoning, but the MDA, the development agreement, can be as specific or as general as we want it to be, within the parameters of general expectations for zoning law, et cetera. But it's pretty open, so we can get very specific. We were getting very specific. I think much of this discussion was because the Planning Commission was getting very, very specific in the MDA, which I think is a good direction to go, so that we have that down, down the road. If it's 10 or 15 years down the road, you want that specificity because many people may not be here to remember it. And so typically developers push back, but we should hold strong and go for specificity in our MDAs. They're a very detailed legal document.
Agreed. I think we also need to, when the specificity varies from our standard, which we have as our zoning ordinance, we should have that clarity as to what the differences are. I know that, typically that's a variance, but we should specify that. But I think phasing is really important right now in our concepts of development. Anyway, those were the half a dozen items. Sorry, I was picking on you, Thomas, but we could even work offline on some of that,
Sure, absolutely.
I'll leave it at there, Chris.
All right, that was good, Ralph. So the first one was community survey, and then the remainder had to do with planning. Thank you. As far as community survey, I know we were in another meeting this week, Ralph, where we had a discussion, and I learned the term survey methodologist. So we do, I mean, I guess that's somebody's job somewhere. When we do finally figure out what kind of community surveys we'd like to try to issue, I think we need to make sure we're following a good sound methodology on those. And I'm just stating that as my desire also for follow-up.
Yeah. And phrasing the questions the right way. Sometimes, if we ask a lot of questions, but they don't really have, kind of actual meaning to them that we can draw conclusions from, then they're meaningless,
I mean, or if we ask the wrong questions, we'll get the wrong data and it won't be helpful to us.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I think we do have to focus on the methodology for surveys in general. We can't just be haphazard and random. So, okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other council member want to speak on any items for follow-up? Okay, Ralph, thanks for calling that out, that I skipped that. Follow-up items. All right, let's go down to committee updates. Is there anyone from the Planning Commission on the line? Let me look at the participants.
I think we don't have anybody, but I volunteered to give an update.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Go ahead.
Yeah, so really at the Planning Commission, you guys saw it earlier tonight on your agenda, it got continued. That was the short-term rental overlay zoning work, as well as the residential casita zoning designation. Both of those were presented to the Planning Commission. I think that we've heard them a few times now at the Planning Commission, but we keep tweaking and adding additional detail, which is why the mayor noted that it'll probably change before you see it at the next month's meeting. So we went through both of those zoning ordinances, those draft ordinances, made some revisions, edits. There was some really good discussion. And so at the Planning Commission next Thursday, I will take back the edited versions and we will have a discussion. And the Planning Commission most of them have let me know they want to get this forwarded to you guys ASAP. So I'm pretty sure that they'll make a recommendation, whether positive or negative, they'll make a recommendation at next week's meeting. So you will see those at your October meeting.
Okay, we have that to look forward to. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, okay, thanks. All right, the Community Engagement Committee. All right, Sherry,
Is that
tell
too
us all
much
the
of a
cool stuff
mouthful?
happening.
Is that too much of a mouthful? So we are having a concert Sunday and I expect all of you to be there. It's at the state park, which is wonderful because it's beautiful down there. Lots of space, gorgeous views. The weather will be like 20 degrees less than it was last time. So it's going to bring a sweater. Jan has worked really hard to get the word out to just about everyone. So we don't know if we're going to have 50 people or 500 people there. But we will have some food trucks and we're having the band we had at the July concert, which is the Discographers, who was amazing. So we're really excited about it. And the whole idea is to get the word out about Hideout to the greater community, because we've invited a lot of people from outside Hideout. So I think this will be a really good way to get Hideout some positive publicity, hopefully. So hopefully
you've partnered with the state park as well, right?
Yeah, so the state park is letting us have people come in after like 3 o'clock without paying the fee. They're just basically being really nice to us and letting us do whatever we want down there for a $50 permit fee. So it's great. Yeah.
Hey, maybe we should record this, Sherry. They're a really good band. Put it on a YouTube video and see how many interested hits we get.
Yeah, we have some great dancers in our town. So let's record some of the great songs. That'd be fun.
Get it
Are
on
you
that
coming,
YouTube.
Ralph? You better be coming.
I didn't come to the last one. I came to the July one.
The last one was we had to cancel the last one because we didn't have a great turnout. There was too much going on in town. So
I wasn't in town, and I come back Saturday, so I'll be there Sunday.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
Good.
But what a great venue.
I know it's going to be really nice. And hopefully it'll work out because then we can do them there more often next year. The problem this year was knowing where we could do the concerts with enough time to get the word out. And that's part of what happened in August. But if we have this venue that can work well, then that will make things easier until we have an actual amphitheater.
So Sherry, is the location at the end of the road in the state park where the new?
Yeah. So if you go all the way to the end where the new pavilions are, we're going to use one of those pavilions to put the band under. We got a stage for them. And, the only stress is hopefully the generator works and lasts the whole time. So until they get some electricity down there, we have to deal with the generator. So.
Okay. And then the other question is, do you need still need volunteers?
We have pretty much a lot of people volunteered to set up. There's not quite as much setup, but I'm sure during the concert we'll need help with like directing traffic and selling merchandise and, but just being there, Chris, is all we need.
Okay. All right. Super. This is exciting. Thank you. Thanks, Sherry. Thank you so much, Jan, as well. And let us know.
Jan has been absolutely amazing. And Public Works has really been helping out a lot as well. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you. All right. That's our exciting last event, right, of 2023 that we know of, Sherry?
Well, we hope to do a snowshoe event if it snows a normal amount this year. So.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to that as well. Thank you. All right. Moving on, Design Review Committee. Thomas.
No real updates, just working, the most recent submittals have been for Lakeview and Deer Springs. They're underway. Nothing really new to report. They're just executing right now. So I'll keep you posted as the next phases come in.
Great, thank you. Okay, then it is the post committee, which I had in front of me. I was gonna go from my notes. Where did they go? It's so funny. I had that. Okay, I'm just gonna go from memory. No, that's not a good idea. We had a post committee meeting. I think it was on the 28th. Again, I'm looking for it. Oh, it's so funny how it was there and then it was gone. Give me a second. I'm gonna open up another page. See, I'm okay when I'm presenting and not speaking, but when I have to present and speak, there we go. Okay. I'm going to turn off my screen share. So for the post committee, we had a meeting on August 28th. It was Carol Hazelton joined us, and it was Jan Thomas, Kathleen, and then we had Hans Johansson joining us as well. So we had an issue with some the Deer Flow Trail being overgrown in Deer Springs, and we were able through some great work with that Kathleen did, we're able to get approval through Homes that they would hire Hans to do the trail maintenance, which he did. And so the trail has now been restored, more or less restored to its original glory as the best trail in Hideout for biking. So he also followed up with me, and he told me he had presented a plan to Homes for an annual maintenance contract that he could work out with them, so that we don't have to worry about that trail getting into such dangerous condition again. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that that's going to work out. Also, Hans had been in touch with Jordanelle State Park, Jason Whitaker, on his own about trail connections. And he actually went ahead and designed and submitted a proposal to the park manager about how to connect that stub trail that ends in Deer Springs and taking it down into the state park to hit the perimeter trail. So I think he's made some progress there. And, that's required because it goes into the state park. There'll be a NEPA study required and, some hoops to jump through. So we're going to continue to pursue that trail connection. Now, there are several other trail connections I know the mayor has spoken with the park manager about, and we're still working on that. One of the items that we have not been able to really come to an agreement on yet is what kind of financial arrangement the town will have with the state park to enable us to make trail connections directly into the state park. That would allow any of the trail users, to be able to get into the state park without having to go through the gate, then the new gate in Ross Creek or any of the other gated areas. And it would entitle them, this financial arrangement would entitle town residents to be able to use the state park without having to, it would be like a local state park pass. So we haven't figured out the details on that yet, but the town has budgeted for it for half a year in this current fiscal year. So we have budgeted for something to start in January, but we'll see if we are able to reach an agreement by then. And then we talked a little bit about fire station in the Public Works building. So Jan gave us a report that there's a concept plan in progress for that, triangle parcel. That because we're very interested in fire station because also one of the possibilities is in that parcel we could have some trail parking that could help us get to trails that would be eventually built in Claim or in that area. So we talked about that as well. And then finally, we had invited Carol to the meeting, and she gave us a transportation report. So with that,
What a segue.
what a segue. I'd like to turn it over to Carol to tell us about transportation.
I really have nothing to report. I called twice today to the city to find out about the Richardson Flat bus. And the only information I could get is that they are going to run a bus. But hours, where the bus will go, other than the route that it's already going on, they didn't have any information. So it's frustrating. I know they're working on it. They are changing some of their routes. So I don't think they're ready yet to say what they are. And I don't know if they've been working with the resorts to try to get direct transportation to the resorts. Right now, it still looks like it's going to the transit center, which is in, above Old Town. So that's what I have to report.
Okay, thanks, Carol.
Questions? Does anybody have any questions? And right now, I still have 2 people that are interested in private transportation, but that's really not going anywhere yet. So there probably wouldn't be a need for it if the silver bus would go directly to the resorts.
Well, we can only hope, Carol.
I know. I think they're still working on it, so I can't get an answer. And I don't know when they'll come out with it. It's September, and we probably won't hear much of anything until November.
Right. Well, thanks for trying to get this information for us. Okay. Anybody have any further questions about any of the committees? All right. I would just want to shout out again to Kathleen. And thank you, Kathleen, for helping the post committee in so many ways. And I don't know what we'd do without you. So thank you for that. Okay. Oh, I probably should have reported, and I didn't. Kathleen, if you are off, if you could get off mute, will you just give us a real quick recap of how the National Ability Center Summit Challenge Rest Station worked that Hideout sponsored?
Oh, hi. I am now muted. We had a very fun time doing the National Ability Center Summit Challenge. We had a good group of volunteers. We had a new location this year, which was probably safer in that it was off of 248, right at the 2hay, right next to the gatehouse. But so we didn't get to see all the racers come by, but we, just had a good morning and a good turnout.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. I know I showed up there on my bike, and I thought the Hideout rest stop was spectacular. So thank you for organizing that, and thanks everyone who volunteered, including Jan. All right. Okay, so with that, I think we've come to the conclusion of the meeting. Since we're not going into executive, excuse me, can I have a motion to end the meeting of September 14th, 2023 of the Hideout Town Council?
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. Do I have a second?
Well, second.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, Ralph?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Chris? Yes. All right, thank you all. Thank
Thanks,
you, Cameron
Chris.
and Tim. and Alicia for being here as well. We will
Welcome.
see you next
Glad to
month.
be here. Yep. See you
Thanks.
guys. Thanks for your help,
Bye,
everybody.
Thomas. Thank you too.